if you take as your stage the North Sea, what people don't realize is that 12,000 years ago, the North Sea was dry land. It was marshy and swampy dry land, but it was dry land. The North Sea, as we know it, did not exist. And in there were living probably maybe 10,000 hunters and gatherers who simply retreated as the sea rose, and it rose so fast that in places probably the shoreline was unrecognizable for what it had been when you were young, by the time you were at the end of your life, which would have been in your 20s probably. And by 5500 BC, it was gone. You had the ocean we know today. And ever since then, people living in the Low Countries have been defending themselves against the rising ocean. And what really triggered the current sea level defenses of the Netherlands was a series of gigantic North Sea gales which started in the Atlantic and barreled ashore on the low-lying, unprotected shores of the lowlands, of the Low Countries, without warning, because there was no forecasting. And these brought very strong winds and high waves. And if one of these coincided with high tide, you got huge storm surges, which would sweep several meters of water over hundreds of thousands of acres. And in 1362, there was one of these storms which is called the Grootmandrenke, which is the great killing of people. And this killed what contemporary records call an infinity of people. And it literally rolled herds of cattle and sheep with the waves far inland and flooded an enormous area. And there were a whole series of these which really triggered the history of sea defenses. And it's worth mentioning, before I shut up, that there were two defining events like this. Now, this will come up later in the 20th century. One was a sea surge in 1916, which resulted in the damming of the Zuider Zee, which became the Isselmeer, and the latest one was in 1953, when dikes burst in southern Holland and killed 1,200 people, as well as about the same number of people in Britain. So there's a long history of this.